Well, welcome everyone to the FJATA Compliance Initiative. This is our Corporate Social Responsibility meeting introducing our new FJATA Audit Protocol. Next slide, please. I am Brent Cleveland, Executive Director of FJATA. Our panel for today's discussion will include the following: David Newman, VP of Operations at Carroll Lee; Jason Roberts, CEO of Sumerra; Anna Menendez, Senior Director of Business Relations and Technical Support at Sumerra; and Jeff Berry, Executive Officer, Business Relations and Technical Services of Sumerra, who will be moderating questions. Slide, please. I would like to now address some housekeeping issues. Due to the quantity of attendees, your phone and microphone have been muted. This will avoid feedback and other distractions that could occur. During the call, you may want to submit a question. Kindly type it into the question box or the chat box and send it to Jeff Berry. All questions will be answered, some at the end of the presentation, time permitting, and some by email. You can submit your question anytime, and questions with multiple entries will be given priority. Now, it has taken 10 years for us to get to this point, and I'm delighted to see that we have come so far. This is a significant industry accomplishment, so let's get started. FJATA is a member-supported trade association representing the jewelry and accessories industries in legislative matters worldwide. With our beginnings deeply rooted in the California Prop 65 situation, companies realized that they would be better represented, accomplish more, and more effectively fund an initiative as a group rather than fight the fight alone. FJATA was born. Prop 65 was only just the beginning. The development of the Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, dealing with lead and some phthalates in children's products, was developed as we diligently provided information, testified before Congress, and kept our membership informed of current compliance requirements. Slide, please. FJATA chaired the committee that developed the F2923-11 Children's Jewelry Safety Standard, working with the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Chairman Tenenbaum, the former CPSC chair, spoke at our annual meeting praising FJATA for taking the proactive step and creating the new children's standard. All this while inaccurate, sensationalist AP stories appeared, wrongly attacking our industry for poisoning our children. State legislators and international regulatory agencies looked for ways to ensure safe jewelry was sold to children, and random, unscientific regulations were made law. The FJATA began the effort working every day to develop and recommend to legislators safe standards that are peer-reviewed and science-based. Certainly not the legislation and regulations that we have now. We perform and commission testing, engage lobbyists, meet with legislators and regulators, and testify when needed. Over the past 4 years, we have stopped a dozen bad bills. Slide, please. Currently, we are actively working with states on their cadmium standards while we seek harmonization of all standards worldwide. The total international adoption of the ASTM 2923 Children's Jewelry Safety Standard is our ultimate goal. Under the direction of former committee chair Sabrina Berry, FJATA developed its code of conduct. This is the foundation from which we will establish the FJATA Corporate Social Responsibility Audit, and that's what brings us together today. Many members are experiencing audit fatigue, having one brand or retailer request a factory audit to have another brand or retailer request an audit of the same factory a week later. Often, both brands require different audits, and the factory would be disrupted twice in a very short time collecting the same information. Not only was this disruptive to the factory, but expensive as well, as often the requesting brand would pay for the multiple audits. Our members asked for a solution. To solve this problem, we decided to develop the official FJATA Jewelry and Accessories Audit, to be recognized by the industry as the audit to use. It would be paid for by the factories and performed on a regular basis, more often for factories with a history of serious corrective action plans, and annually for those with favored compliance status. This will be covered in much greater detail as this presentation continues. We also needed to address the training about chemicals and health and safety issues and what it means to achieve sustainability. Slide. We are delighted to be working with Sumerra in the development of this process. We are combining the strength of FJATA with the experience of Sumerra to improve brand audit management, develop standards, provide education, and tools to manage this process. I encourage all of you on this call to do whatever you can to support this effort, not only by contributing to the audit development, but actively promoting its use and acceptance once it is completed, which will be essential for its success. After all, we are only doing what the toy and apparel industries already have in place. I look forward to a quick completion and ultimate enactment of this audit tool. Now I would like to turn this over to David Newman, VP Operations of Carol Lee and distributor of Carol Lee, Chaps, Ralph Lauren, and French Connection brands. He is an FJATA board member and has worked diligently as committee chair to get this audit process underway. I would like to formally thank him now for his work, and I now turn this over to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Good afternoon, everyone. As Brent said, my name is David Newman. I'm the VP of Operations for Carol Lee and the chairman of the FJATA Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. I want to thank all of you for your time and support for the FJATA initiative to develop and implement a social compliance program for our industry that addresses the chronic problems we all face with verifying compliance of the vendor factories we partner with. I have been involved with factory compliance for a number of years, and the deficiencies of compliance auditing in the fashion jewelry industry have been apparent and frustrating to me for some time. I'm sure all of you have had similar experiences. As responsible companies, we all want to demonstrate that the factories making our products are doing so in a manner that is consistent with our ethical standards, that of the industry, and the larger public. We need to be sure that the factories making our merchandise are doing so under fair and safe conditions that do not jeopardize the integrity of our brand, our company, or ourselves. Next slide. Our industry, all of us, currently treat factory audits as proprietary in nature. This prevents sharing in virtually all cases, even though the criteria demonstrating a responsible factory is very consistent throughout the fashion jewelry and accessories industries. The result is frequent redundancy in auditing of factories, delays in scheduling, lost productivity, and inflated costs for everyone. The FJATA understood the problem and recognized the opportunity to improve an important industry-wide function that is mandatory for any responsible company. I joined the committee about a year ago because I believed in the premise of a better way for the industry and felt I could help develop and implement a more effective, less costly solution. Next slide. Excuse me. The goal of the FJATA and the committee itself is to develop a compliance program standard that can comprehensively address all the concerns and requirements of a majority of the industry. The audit itself will be based on the FJATA Code of Conduct and universal standards of ethical behavior that protect workers in a safe environment and a fair manner where we can all be proud of. At the same time, addresses the inefficiencies in the current system of compliance auditing that will effectively and significantly reduce cost and delays. The program will also provide a consistency of compliance standards that doesn't currently exist. Additionally, we want to develop a program of training and education for the participating factories that will help them develop the necessary skills and policies to continue improving the working environment of their facilities. Next slide. The program will be open to all wholesalers, brands, and retailers who want to participate. Participants will be given regular updates and have opportunity to offer comments and suggestions. A task force will be established to advise consent through each stage of the development process. Your voice is important to the work of the committee, and the process will provide continual opportunity for your input and help shape the program. Next slide. The success of this initiative will be wholly dependent on the support and participation of the members of this committee and the larger fashion jewelry and accessories business community. The results will be a better audit, a timely audit, and significantly reduced auditing costs. Thank you. I'd like to now turn it over to Jason Roberts, CEO of Sumerra.
Thank you, Brent and David. It's our Sumerra's opportunity and to be part of this initiative. It's very exciting for Sumerra. It's very exciting for the industry and for the factories that are working therein. And so we are certainly appreciative of this opportunity. I'd like to remind the participants on the webinar, if you have questions, to go ahead and ask those so we can make sure and get those questions answered through this process. Again, Sumerra is very excited about this opportunity to partner with the FJATA in this initiative. It's a great opportunity for Sumerra in that it fits the Sumerra goals and objectives perfectly. Ultimately, we are working to improve the lives of the workers and local communities, and we feel and think that this program, this initiative does that. It's a great opportunity for the industry to do this, to make positive impacts in the supply chain. And it's a great opportunity for you as companies that have a supply chain to positively impact the workers, the local communities that they are working in a way that's fiscally responsible and makes good business sense. Sumerra's goal with this program, with the FJATA, is ultimately we are here to make the program successful. We want to partner with you. We want to partner with each of you to ensure that this works in a way that it just works, that you have your goals met, that workers are protected. A program like this, which we've implemented several times, is not done overnight. There is a systematic approach to how to implement such a program. The results also don't come in instantly. It does take a little bit of time to see results in the factory. You can see on the slide that there are several phases that we have created and that we'll be working through. The first phase, the standards and the audit tool, have been done in a rough draft format, so that has been worked on. We are looking forward to input and into opportunities to improve that and make the audit tool and the standards as good as they can be. But those are being done and have been worked on to date. Those are based on the industry accepted standards, and we'll take information from different sources to create an audit tool and standards that make the most sense for the industry that you are working in. We then move into the second phase, which is doing the monitoring or the audits, and so Anna will be spending some time talking about how the audit management program will work and how we envision that working for you. From there, we go into factory education. Ultimately, factories need to understand how to do compliance and how to manage this in their factory and what they can do to make this work. As part of the monitoring program, there will be education provided and training and guidance provided to the factories. In addition, we are looking at providing additional education and resources and trainings for the factories so that ultimately they can understand, which moves into the last phase of sustainability, which is factories owning this and factories understanding and managing this. Next slide. Again, the mission of this, as David said, is to help the factories and the workers. The FJATA goals are to have better factories and have factories that protect the workers. Ultimately, we want a system that the buyers, the retailers and brands and others can accept the FJATA program and the audits that go along with that, which ultimately reduces cost while creating that positive change. Sumerra's goal is to help this program be successful, and again, obviously, to improve the worker lives and to help local factories. And your goal as you continue to work is to be profitable and to purchase and to produce in a responsible manner. And so hopefully these goals will come together and will work together. I'm going to turn the call over to Ana Menendez, part of the Sumerra team, who has a lot of experience with auditing and audit programs, and she will talk about how the audits will be working.
Thank you, Jason. So first, let's start off with who can participate in the program. The program is open to both FJATA members and non-members. Participating companies can be brands, retailers, importers, wholesalers, and their factories. There is no membership cost to join the initiative, but registration is required. The program offers a variety of benefits to participants and the industry through its collaboration efforts. The biggest benefit is a reduction in costs. Participating companies will no longer need to have dedicated staff to manage the audit process. This will be done through the audit management process administered by Sumerra. There will also be a reduction in the amounts of audits that factories will need to endure, as audits will be shared amongst participating companies. To help you understand better, we would like to explain what we mean by sharing. Participating companies will be able to buy audit reports that have been previously conducted along with the CAP progress report. Companies will receive an official report from Sumerra that authenticates the audit visit as well as the CAP progress review, which is a desktop review. Factories will benefit as it reduces the audit costs and reduces the disruption in the factory that arise from audits. The foundation for a good compliance program is to have comprehensive standards that provide guidance to factories on what the requirements are and clear expectation of what needs to be done to meet the requirements on the implementation. The standards go beyond the Code of Conduct to provide guidance on what requirements fall under the Code of Conduct. Once fully developed standards are established, there needs to be a consistent audit tool that analyzes if the standards are being met. By having an industry tool, it will allow for more consistent reporting, which allows for more collaboration amongst companies. By having a specifically developed audit tool for FJATA, industry concerns can be more effectively addressed. The proposed tool will include a scoring mechanism by which companies can gauge their suppliers' performance. Lastly, and most importantly, the cost of these tools are built into the audit management program pricing, so there is no additional cost for these. As many of you may know, Sumerra has effectively been running audit management programs for several well-known brands. We have created a model specifically for the FJATA that will work with both large brands and retailers as well as with smaller companies. Our main goal is to have as many participating companies and factories as possible. There will be a basic audit and a recommended audit. The recommended audit will be the audit that most bigger companies or companies with more robust programs will require of their factories. These audits will include Sumerra-developed corrective action plans, CAP progress reports, and may take a few man-days based on the factory size. The basic audit will only take one mandate, regardless of the factory size, and will only have an audit report that includes a simple CAP from the auditor. This type of audit is ideal for companies who are doing a one-time purchase from a factory and will not be working there long enough with the factory to review follow-up on a CAP. It also may be appealing to companies who do not have well-developed programs in place. No other follow-up will be completed by Sumerra on this type of audit. Sumerra will provide a dedicated program customer relations manager to work with both participating companies and the factories. The CRM will address issues and monitor trends for both participating companies and factories. Our Sumo database, which was specifically designed for audit management, will be the tool that factories will use to update their CAPs. The database will be able to provide fast trend analysis for companies and the industry, and will house all of the audit reports in a safe and secure manner. We will see pricing details for the audits in a few minutes, but basically it's simple. For both types of audits, the following will apply. Factory pays for the audit, and companies pay for the sharing cost. So now I'd like to walk you through the audit management cycle for recommended audits. There are basically 6 stages in the cycle: audit requests, selection of auditors, invoicing and scheduling of the audit, audit completion, verification of audit/CAP creation, and the CAP follow-up. Participating companies will supply Sumerra with a list of factories that will need to be audited for a 6-month period. Sumerra will first check to see if audits have taken place at the factories? If so, Sumerra will advise the participating company that previous audit exists and will offer to share the audit report. If there has been no audit, Sumerra will contact the factory advising that there is an audit request by the company. Sumerra will provide a window for the audit and will begin the scheduling process. Sumerra will then select auditors for the specific region who have been approved for FJATA audits. Criteria for selection of auditor will include the following: price, timing, availability for the audit, and quality of previous audits. Once the auditor is selected, Sumerra will invoice the factory for the cost of the audit. All payments must be received by Sumerra prior to scheduling of the audit. Sumerra will schedule the audit with the factory and the auditor. The audit then takes place. The size of the factory will determine the length of time of the audit or the amount of man days. We will cover the requirements for the man days in upcoming slides. The auditor has 5 business days to submit the audit reports to Sumerra. Once we receive the reports, our verifiers will review the reports to see if there are any issues with the reporting. If there are any, they will go back to the auditor for more clarification. Once the verification has been completed, the Sumerra team will create a CAP for the factory. The CAP will provide the suggested action plan along with the timeline for implementation of the plan. Sumerra will follow up on the CAP with factory management after the agreed upon timing, either 30, 60, or 90 days. The progress of the CAP will be maintained on the Sumo database and will be available to all companies who have paid the participating costs for an audit report. Now let's look at the stages of the basic audit cycle. As you see, it's basically almost the same process with the exclusion of the CAP. The CAP will be a simple CAP developed by the auditor, which will be included in the audit report. There will be no follow-up on the CAP by Sumerra prior to the release of the report to participating companies. As mentioned earlier, there is no cost for development of the standards and the audit tool, as it's built into the pricing structure that we're presenting here. Due to the different types of potential participating companies, Sumerra has developed a 2-tier pricing structure. We understand that some participating companies will not have highly developed programs as others, but will still want to participate. We offer the basic pricing for those companies and the recommended for those with more highly developed programs. The program requires for the factory to pay for the initial audit. All participating companies will pay a sharing cost, which we will see on the next slide. Depending on the different customers that factories have, we believe they will probably use the recommended audit rather than the basic audit. The basic audit is a 1-day audit no matter what the size of the factory. As you see on the chart, the recommended audit provides for more days of auditing dependent on the size of the facility. There is no difference between the basic audit versus the recommended audits in regards to scheduling events. The differences between the audits is the CAP. Sumerra will not develop CAPs or do any follow-up CAPs for basic audits. The recommended audit includes not only the development of a CAP by Sumerra, but also a CAP follow-up with the factories. Sumerra will provide basic guidelines on how to make improvements in the factory. So what is the cost of participating companies? Well, for a basic audit, the sharing cost is $250, and for the recommended audit, the sharing cost is $450. What do participating companies get for the price? For the basic and recommended, everyone will receive an official copy of the audit report from Sumerra. For the recommended audit, participating companies will additionally receive the Sumerra CAP and the follow-up CAP progress report. Through factory education, the program will raise the bar on compliance for the industry. The initiative plans on developing a series of factory workshops and webinars that will help educate factory management on labor requirements as well as health and safety and environmental standards, which will help to bring the industry to a higher compliance level to that of the apparel, toy, and electronics industry. We also plan on producing printed educational materials such as educational supplements and inserts for the FJATA newsletter that will educate participants on current issues. The better educated factories are, the more likely they are to have better compliance performance, and the better the working environment is for industry workers. Depending on how quickly we can get started with the task force, this is the best timeline we see for implementation of phases 1 through 3. We are targeting having both standards and audit tools developed and adopted by the CSR committee by the end of 2014. As soon as this is completed, we plan on having a small pilot program with a variety of participating companies, meaning brands, retailers, wholesalers, importers, to see if there are any changes or additions that need to be implemented with the audit management process or CAP development process. We see the audit management program starting as soon as we are halfway through the pilot program. It will be a slow start to the program, but we'll gain speed as we bring more factories on board. The third phase, the education portion, could start as soon as we start the audit management process, either by offering webinars, group training sessions, or on-site factory trainings. We foresee that starting towards the end of the first quarter or beginning of second quarter of 2015. Phase 4 of the program will be developed through the CSR committee. We have not outlined anything other than the topic and projected start date. The contents of this phase is really dependent on participating companies and what commitment they have taken to sustainability. And so with this, I'm going to hand this session off to Jeff Berry to moderate the questions that we've been getting. As discussed, we will be taking the questions off the chat box or the question box. And so now I hand it off to Jeff Berry.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Anna. That was great. We had a couple of questions come in. Actually, the first question I'll hand off to Jason. The question comes in, will you have a certificate that is issued to each factory once they have achieved compliance and a satisfactory audit? How long will the certificate be valid for, and will there be unannounced follow-up audits to monitor ongoing compliance?
Thank you, Jeff. That's actually a great question, which I'm happy to answer. So with this program, we meaning the FJATA or Sumerra, we are not certifying factories. This is not a certification program. What we are doing is we are providing the requester audit information. And so that the requester then determines if they want to do business with that factory or not. And so we are not necessarily certifying. We are not saying the factory is good or bad other than providing information. Each individual company gets to choose, has the opportunity and the responsibility, I guess, to choose whether they source from that factory or not. And so one company may say they want to do business with that factory, another company may say they may not want to do business, and the third company may say, we'll do business with you if you fix these issues. Again, we are simply in the process, we are simply, I don't want to say simply, but we are simply providing data and information. Therefore, there is no step follow-up or audit that goes and ensures that the factory is continually meeting their certification standards. Again, we're not certifying. The next audit that occurs, we would suggest, would be a year later. That is a typical audit time frame. But we will not be doing audits until we receive that request from a company who is sourcing from the factory. Most organizations assume that an audit data is good for several months, maybe up to a year, and so again, that's up to each individual company to determine how often they want audits or how long they see that as a valid audit.
Great, and actually that brings us into the next question. Can you explain a little bit about the audit process itself? How long does it take? What does it actually cover? Are there worker interviews, for example?
Anna, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the audit will be pretty much a traditional audit. It will entail, you know, the labor interviews that we normally endure. It will have a health and safety tour of the facility that will cover not just health and safety for workers, but also certain environmental issues that will be established in the standards that we put out there. And so it is pretty much what you normally have in terms of an audit. I think that the question set probably will be pretty robust from what we've drafted, and so it may go you know, slightly deeper than what you may be getting from certain auditing companies. I did have the opportunity in the last few months to view audit reports for one of the companies that shared with me all the different varieties of audit reports, and what I found was that there was a lot of inconsistency in what was being covered or to what degree the audit was covering. So I think by having one tool and having standards out there, it will send a very clear message to your factories and suppliers of what is expected for them to, you know, to meet requirements, as well as what will happen in terms of, you know, what we're covering in the audit tool.
Great question. Lots of questions coming in, and if we don't get to them all, we will respond to the entire group via email with answers to each of the questions. But a couple more here. Will the client companies see the actual audit questions and answers?
They'll receive the actual audit tool and the audit report, which will probably include some kind of executive summary. So yes, they'll see the question set. And by the way, the CSR committee will sign off on that audit tool, so everyone will see what question set is included in the tool.
Great. Another great question with regards to actual scope of the audit process and program. Is it anticipated that QMS will be a component of the audits? I assume that's a reference to quality manufacturing.
I think, Anna, you can answer this as well, but why don't, besides QMS, I think you could talk about CTPAT, building structure as well, and talk about the scope of the audits, just in general.
In terms of, I'm sorry, maybe you should take that, Jason. I kind of lost track there.
That's fine. So as Anna mentioned, the audit would be similar to what you've experienced before, mostly geared toward labor and environmental safety and health issues. And when I say environmental safety and health, it's chemical management, hazardous waste, some wastewater treatment questions, dormitories, things like that. There will not be a lot at QMS. There will not be a lot of CTPAT, nor would there be very much on building structural safety. From a structural safety point of view, there will be a few questions. The reality of the industry that we're in, to do a building structure safety audit, the auditors need a completely different skill set, and so that is extremely difficult to do with with the auditors around the world. But there will be some minimal looks into the structural safety, and again, it is not anticipated that there will be a CTPAT or a QMS component. However, we'll be, as Anna mentioned, working with the CSR committee, and they'll be helping us revise and draft and formulate and get the audit to where the FJATA group as a whole would like it to be. And so there is room for changing and modifying and updating that audit question set.
Great. Jason, another good question for you directly. Is this program already a done deal, or is this a proposal process?
I think I can answer part, and Brent and David can also talk about it. We are going down the road of down this road of audit management and compliance program managing for the FJATA. The actual details of how we do this, the audit tool, the question set, as I just mentioned, that certainly has room to have input and feedback. But as a group, I think we're collectively committed to seeing this happen and making this work. And again, Brent and David, I don't know if you have any feedback on that as well.
I think
well, certainly. You go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
Okay, I think that's a great answer, Jason. And I guess the bottom line is we have agreed to agree that we have put together the format by which we can execute the FJATA audit, which will be, I guess, for lack of any better word, governed by the CSR committee. In fact, if all of you on the call, if you're wondering who that committee is you. So we're hoping that all of you will attend the next call, which I'll get to later, to bring this to fruition and to make it happen, because it certainly does make sense.
Just to add to what Brent said, we've set out certain criteria that we want to accomplish with this audit and the associated tools. Number one, we want a standardized audit that is comprehensive in compliance, in that it'll be acceptable for the vast majority of our industry to use, and they would be comfortable with. And that's really where I think the committee has an important role to play in your input into what that means as far as the actual audit and the management of that entails. The other important aspect of it is, being a standardized audit, you're going to a model where the factory is taking one audit annually that satisfies the needs for most, if not all, of their customers once this is up and running. That is going to save direct and indirect costs, the direct cost to the vendor or factory, indirect cost of product to the wholesaler or retailer that's involved, and making it much easier to get one audit schedule as opposed to a series of audits throughout, or redundant audits throughout the year, and less disruption into the factory's schedule, which obviously impacts delivery of goods, which is always tight. So my feeling is that the committee has a really important role to play in shaping the body of what this is.
I think we had some sound problems there.
Did I cut out?
Yes.
How much of it was cut out? Sorry.
Just your last sentence.
Anyway, what I was saying is that's where the committee comes in helping shape the content of the tool, of the audit and the tool, so that it is an audit that's going to satisfy the needs of all our different companies. I think that much of the qualities of an audit are universal. Health and safety are universal issues, and again, the ultimate goal is to have one standardized audit that the factory is taking annually, reducing costs and reducing downtime for the factory.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, David. That's perfect. And actually, to the point of the task force and/or subcommittees with regards to the audit tool, lots of questions coming in about modules for building structural safety and/or CTPAT. These are some things that certainly could be considered as add-on modules for the audit events, perhaps on a as needed per factory discretion or basis. But those are things that certainly we could work to facilitate within the program. Another question here, and this question maybe a good question for Anna. what incentive do the factories have to pay for the audit since suppliers like us normally pay for them?
So I think, one, it will help reduce the amount of audits, and so I actually go to a lot of factories myself to either work on auditing or on consulting work, and one of the biggest problems that factories have is the amount of audits, the disruption to the factory floor. And so basically, although they're paying for the audit, I think that, you know, the cost of the audit actually will get lost, because if they're only doing one audit a year and everybody's accepting it, that cost will basically get lost in the cost of the product across all the different customers. So that is the incentive, I think, primarily for the factory, along with only having one corrective action plan to work, one set of findings. You know, how much more easier can you make it for a factory that they no longer have to do 10 or 15 audits a year and 10 or 15 corrective action plans a year? So I think that's truly the incentive for the factories.
You know, if I could just add to that, the cost of the audit, whether the factory or the audit consumer is paying for it, is ultimately going to be part of the cost of product. And the goal here is to reduce the overall cost of auditing for both the factories and the audit consumers. And cutting down the audits from multiple audits throughout the year to one audit per year is, whether it's directly paid for by the factory or by the audit consumer, is going to reduce cost.
In follow-up to that, David, another good question perhaps for yourself or Anna. How can we ensure enough retailers will participate and accept the audit from Sumerra?
I think
well,
that...
I think... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's important that the group that we have on reach out to other retailers and other brands to get buy-in from them and get their support to come on to the program. The more we get people on board on the program, the more this will be a success. And so I think it's up to every single person that is on the call who sees this as an opportunity to really reach out and to other companies and bring people on board. You know, I always say that the compliance industry takes a few great leaders who have vision to start up programs, and when you start it, most people will follow. As soon as people have confidence in the program, people want to join. And so the more we actually market as a group the program, I think the more we'll have more and more retailers joining. It's exactly what happened with the toy industry when they first started a program, and more people, you know, got on board and you know, are members of the toy industry program.
And just to add to what Anna said, I think the most compelling argument is it's a much better model than what currently exists. It reduces the amount of audits dramatically, and consequently reduces costs. It'll be a comprehensive audit that will satisfy the main concerns of all of us, which is that the people making our products are doing so in a safe and fair environment, and that our brands and our company name, the integrity of that is protected. And it's a better product than what's out there, and that's what I think is going to sell it to the industry. Perfect.
A couple of questions about the audit events themselves. Who will be conducting the audits physically on site?
So I'll take that. So part of the audit management process that we have is that we actually will put out training events to different auditing companies and even individual auditors who function as contractors. And so we already have, Sumerra already has like a pool of auditors, approved auditors from different companies, but we are expanding that as we bring more programs on board. So the auditing would be open to the big third-party auditing firms if they want to have some of their people be trained and approved on the program. They would send them in for training. So it is open to other auditing companies. Sumerra will not audit the factories. Nobody from the Sumerra team will audit the factories. That's not what we do. We do audit management, and so it's really managing the process of the audits versus doing the actual physical audits.
Perfect. Jason, here's a question for you. Will each FJATA member that subscribes to this audit program have direct access to the Sumo database, or is the sharing cost a per factory cost before we can review a factory's audit results?
Thank you for the questions. These are all good. So the Sumo database that we have set up, once you become a participating company in this, the audits that you have essentially purchased and have access to view, you then can view them within our database. And so you can manage essentially your audits or your compliance through the Sumo database. Once you decide to go to another factory or want to look at an audit from another factory, once you have that sharing fee, as Anna mentioned, once you have that completed, then you have access to that factory and their cap and everything that is associated with that. And so essentially that data would then show up in your supply chain, which would be in Sumo. We can also send that, for those of you that aren't so interested in the Sumo database, we can also send that information through email, and we can send you some of that information that way as well. But from a Sumo point of view, once you have decided to go to a factory and that sharing has taken place, then that information will become available to you.
Perfect. Going back to the utilization of third parties, how does that affect the costs of the program, and does that potentially increase the cost to suppliers and members?
No, we actually have a bidding process, and so we once we have a group of a block of audits that are in a specific region, we actually will send that out for bids. So the third parties, the big third parties, along with smaller auditing companies, as well as individual auditors who act as contractors, are all welcome to bid as long as they are approved to conduct FJATA audits.
The flat rate, however, is just a flat rate for the buyers of the audits, and so that rate doesn't necessarily change based on that. It's also interesting to note that from a Sumerra management perspective, we actually score the auditors and we rate the auditors, and so when they're complete with their audit, we score them and we track that, and through time, in essence, when we are choosing auditors and auditing companies who to use, we choose the better auditors that we have had better experiences with, and we track them from a quality point of view, from a technical point of view, obviously from an ethical point of view, and so we're tracking and measuring that, and good auditors receive more audits, and bad auditors don't receive audits, and so eventually auditors drop out. The ones that aren't performing to our standards through time drop out of the program. They simply receive no audits, and so as we move through the program, and as we're moving through this with other companies and other brands, we have a pool of auditors that are better than others, and those receive more business from us and more audits. And so through time, we segregate good auditors, and that's the ones we use.
Another question here. Certain retailers only allow one vendor to utilize a specific factory. how does a vendor ensure their factories are going to be proprietary?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't either, but I'll jump in and talk about just confidentiality. Through the Sumerra process, we will not be saying sharing confidential information. So we will not share with each other, with different companies, who's in that factory. We will share the audit data, as is mentioned. That does not tell what other companies are sourcing from there or what other companies have sourced or will source. That is all confidential information. We will share the audit results, how well the factory is performing from a compliance perspective, from an audit perspective. That is the information that we'll share, but there won't be any business type of sharing going on. So that is not part of what is shared. I'm not sure if that exactly answered the question, but I think it's important to share and to share that detail.
You know, just to add to what Jason said, under the current system, there's two entities that know who the audits are being conducted for, and that's the factory and the auditor itself. That doesn't change. Under the new system, the factory is really the only one that knows who the audits are going to, just as it is now, and the auditing firm, just as it is now. So there's no breach of proprietary information under this system to be concerned about, because that was one of our concerns, Carol Lee's concerns going into this.
Another question here regarding the notes and the actual presentation slides. Yes, this will be shared and distributed after the call. We've also are recording the presentation today, and there'll be a direct link to the recorded call and presentation posted on the website after the call, and you'll all receive that as well. Another question here: how can we find out more about the audit bidding process?
So I'll take that. If you have any specific questions, and I'll just answer that generally, if you have any specific questions about the process, whether it's the audit process, how we choose auditors, as was mentioned, anything, Sumerra would be happy to answer any of those very specific questions. We'd be happy to get on a call or email and answer any of those specific questions. And so we'd be happy to do that. Our contact information will be part of what will be sent out. So if there's any additional questions that you may have, we'd be happy to answer those specific or general.
Excellent. Well, we're nearing the hour. Are there any other questions that we're going to talk about?
There are several more questions, but again, we will make an effort to respond to these when we share the presentation content with answers to any of the other questions that we didn't have a chance to answer. But they're continuing to come in, and I encourage you to send those in, and or of course to email those to myself or any of the other staff members, and we'll make sure to get back to each of you on all of the questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. Boy, we have certainly covered a lot of ground today, and I congratulate each of you on securing your seat at the table. This is your opportunity to get involved and to help shape this audit compliance process to serve your industry. Again, the CSR committee is you, and it's going to take all of us to make this happen. We will be sharing the link for today's recording of this webinar, along with a recap for you to share with either others in your company or other companies. The FJATA newsletter is going to be going out in a few days, and the links will also, and email addresses will also be in that newsletter. So I would like for each of you to please take the time to think of 5 people that you think would benefit from viewing this webinar, and feel free to send this out to them. You know, we are representing the whole industry getting this audit process in place. In fact, as one of the early prep calls that we were going through that led up to this, we were asked by one compliance director, you mean I'm going to have one audit for jewelry, another audit for apparel, and another audit for handbags? And the answer is yes, you are. That is the way the industry is leaning, and that is what we're trying to accomplish here, of having a jewelry-specific audit process. So again, we are representing the whole industry, not just those on the call and not just the members of FJATA, but we're looking to involve the entire industry in this. So I'd like to give everybody, in addition, we'll also be sending out a post-meeting survey. And this will establish everyone's interest in the program. Specific questions, I guess, could be replied to that. And we ask you to please complete this survey by the end of this week so that we can keep the momentum of the development of this audit process moving. I'd also like to caution everybody to save the date. Our next meeting will be held on August 19th, 2014 at 2 p.m. Now that meeting will not be a webinar. You'll be given a call-in number and a code, and it will be a regular conference call. The purpose of this call will be to introduce you to the audit tool and introduce the opportunity to participate on a task force. Again, there are some moving targets in this process, and we need your involvement to make sure that you have a seat at the table and your needs are being heard. The task force will be split into two groups so that folks are not too overwhelmed with the work. And one group will deal with standards and the audit tool, and the other group will focus on educational needs. Participation will be an advisory role, and it should fit in with your day job and not tax too much of your time. And again, there has been a lot of work that has gone into this from FJATA board members and members for years. And we are finally getting to the point where we could make this a reality. And I want to personally thank every one of you for participating in this webinar, and I thank the Sumerra team and David for all their hard work, and we look forward to making this happen. That concludes the webinar. Thanks to everyone, and have a great afternoon.